Welcome to another episode of Your Stories. I'm Dani Fagan, and this is My TMS Journey. Today, I have a very special episode of Your Stories with Dr. Dan Ratner. I've been a fan of his podcast I only found it actually probably about a month ago, 2 months ago. I've binged all of the episodes and I'm a massive fan of his approach. So I thought it'd be interesting to just bring him in, hear some of his story, and just run through his approach a little bit and what he does professionally to kind of present that to you guys as a resource for the website and obviously to help you as well. So I'm going to let him tell his story and give us all of the juicy info. So I'll bring him in now, and then he can tell you himself. Dan, welcome.
There is the friendly Zoom reminder.
Did you get the message? Oh, okay. I didn't hear it that time. How are
Well,
you?
hopefully it doesn't come out, but we can joke about it anyway. I'm good. It's
Yeah.
so great to join you, and thanks
And
for having me.
you. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to do this. I just gave a really brief intro about you. I'm pretty sure everybody that sees this is going to probably already know who you are anyway. I've been banging on the drum about your stuff for a little while already. And I obviously know you already have great reach and audience anyway. So I just wanted to invite you on to meet you, one, to thank you for the work that you do, and just tell you how impressed I am with your approach and how much it's resonated with me and my group as well. And just hear a little bit about like your own personal journey through TMS. I know a little bit about it already, but let's pretend that I don't. And yeah, just take us back a little bit to where it started for you. What kind of symptoms did you have? And then we'll take it from there and talk about your kind of current scenario later.
Okay, that sounds good, and thank you again for all of the support and admiration you show me.
Yeah,
It really does make a big difference because it's we're people like me and you, we're making a very strong effort to try to help a lot of people and to connect to
right.
a lot of people, and that cheering on does really help, so keep
For
it up.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I kind of think of my TMS journey in kind of two different stages, because when I look back, I understand that I've always been on one, like since I was a little
Right.
kid. But I think in the kind of Sarno way of thinking about it, it began when I was 28 years old, and I felt a twinge in my back.
Mm.
Just leaned over to tie my shoelaces, and felt
Classic.
some. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that leads to 8 years of back pain. uh, and I actually remember thinking about all the people I had heard about that had herniated discs, and
Mm.
I started. I think the first thought I had was, what if? You know, when you start thinking what if,
Yeah, it's doomed from then on,
you're
really,
in
aren't you?
doubt.
You're right.
Um, and one of the problems that I ran into, which I think people run into all the time, is that there aren't answers for the what if, or at least there weren't for me then. And
Mm.
that's part of what I think you and I try to provide is answers to the what if, so people don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is it just slowly got worse and worse as I believed there was something wrong with me, or a better way of putting it is as I misunderstood the signs of what this meant. But I didn't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
any.
why would you? How would you
Right.
know that? Yeah.
I didn't have any hope, and this I tell people this all the time. Just because it comes from our minds doesn't mean we're at fault from it, because
Of
we
course.
we didn't know. And
There's no
so
way you
what?
could. Yeah.
No, what ended up happening is, I'd say over the course of probably about a month, I had like this really tight muscle in my back that I call the eel muscle, because it would start to spasm.
Oh,
I felt
yes,
like an
same.
electric eel. It
Hmm.
was it was the most pain. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but like I can tell you it was no laughing matter then, because I was terrified
Yeah.
and I didn't really see any way out. But I'm kind of an optimist at heart. So I was like, well, doctors will be able to figure this out.
Of
I, I
course.
I'm weirdly trusting.
Yeah.
Um
And young as well. It's not like and you didn't have an injury, so to speak, so it wasn't like kind of tragic or catastrophic or anything like that, right?
Right. Right. I mean, I was lifting weights at the time, so I thought, oh, maybe I strained myself or something. But I
Mm,
really, if I had just thought maybe I strained myself and it'll heal, I actually would have been better off in terms of just not developing something chronic.
mm.
But I'm a worrier in a lot of ways because of, yes, raise your hand, everybody.
You're telling my story, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason we gravitate towards each other.
I know, right?
And there's so many of us that are like this. And
Mm,
that's where I think the TMS journey really begins from birth for me. I mean, I talk
right.
about it in my podcasts with the death of my father, and so you know about that.
Hmm.
But what people don't know is well, what else unfolded? What
Yes.
what what else unfolded that got me in that? And maybe I was innately kind of a worrier of sorts also. The funny thing is, the thing that has helped me worry much less in life is recovering from TMS.
Same.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm not a very worried person anymore,
No, no,
which
it
is
kind of trains you out of that cycle, doesn't it?
it does. And also I think it informed me about so much of life and how to think about life and how to
Mm,
think about my life. And you mentioned when we were talking before that my power column ideas are some of the more unique aspects of the work.
yeah.
And I live in the power column. That's what I tell people.
So do I. And people might not understand what the hell we're talking about here. They probably do if they've seen you, and I've been banging on about you in the group about interviewing you as well. So they've probably gone and had a look. But just touch briefly on what you're talking about, just to explain that kind of self-esteem element of it that the power column represents.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm a therapist, so I've spent a lot of time talking to people and just talking in my own therapy and thinking about these things about what happened to us and what we feel about it, and
Mm,
that's all useful. It's good, but I felt a frustration about that where we would just keep talking, but
yeah.
there was no adjustment that we were
Mm,
making. And I think the power column really came out of, well, first of all, I learned about it because when I recovered from back pain, when I discovered Sarno and I had like half of a book cure. Uh, I
mm.
I did get cured from the book, but not fully, and I still had lots of doubts, which is how I discovered the doubt column.
Right.
But the funny thing was, I once I started recovering from that, I felt like I had more of a purpose. I was like, oh, I understand something that these other people don't. I, s-
Yeah.
I suddenly felt special in a way that I didn't expect to.
Right. Do you feel like instantly compelled to just shout it from the rooftops? Like there's no other way your life is going to go other than this way now?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think different people have different responses to it. Some people are just like, oh, I got the relief and that's wonderful. And some people are
Yeah.
like,
And go.
I got the relief, but I don't want to do that. I was talking to a guy from England, actually. Do you know who Daniel Hinsley is?
That
Daniel
rings a bell. Another
Daniel
Daniel.
Hinsley. Well, he's another Daniel, right? I interviewed him and Penny George, and
Ah,
they,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, they're dealing with like the NHS stuff, aren't they?
yeah,
And
right. So
yeah, yeah.
they found a different pathway, but everybody finds their own pathway, and sometimes
Mm,
it has nothing to do with mind body work. I just
mm,
found I'm feeling powerful in a way that I didn't before, and through that, I then looked at that and thought, what does this mean? Why is
mm.
it that I became powerful from this? And I
Yes.
kind of reverse engineered it. I was like, well, if that's true, then if we can jump to being powerful, if we can take action steps to become powerful,
Mm.
that should actually reduce the symptoms because that was part of what came from it.
Yeah, you kind of shortcut your way to that instead of waiting for TMS recovery to give you power. You
Exactly.
sort of like jump in early. Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it's yeah, it's better than great. It's amazing. Um, so how did you so you found so I mean just to summarize really what kind of went on for you, not that it needs to be really kind of drawn out at all, but you discovered Sarno, what is it, divine intervention or whatever way Sarno makes his way into your life.
Well, I think actually in a way, I think a lot of people who discover Sarno, they've got to take some of the credit, because usually when people discover Sarno, it's because they didn't stop asking questions.
For real. Agreed, yeah.
And that's what happened for me. I just to give a brief overview of what it was like, I had terrible back spasms that were like getting struck by lightning. I think. I have a friend who got struck by lightning, so I can compare notes.
Did you tell him TMS is worse?
I did not. No, I don't want to devalue his trauma. But they were so bad, and they happened probably like 100 times a day. So it felt like I was being tortured.
Yeah.
And I really was. I didn't know why or how to stop it, but it felt like torture. I would go to sleep and I'd wake up to these just unbearable, wrenching pains. And it was one of the reasons I kept asking questions is I was like, I don't understand. Why does it hurt? Why does it happen? Why does it happen? That was one question. Why does it hurt as much as it does? And then afterwards, it's like, it was almost like it felt like an impulse.
Yeah.
And then it was gone. And so I just was like, I don't understand this. So
it doesn't make sense.
I kept asking questions. I wasn't getting a whole lot of answers, but I kept asking the questions. And first I found medicine was no help. Then physical therapy was very little help, although the physical manipulation did seem to help in some way. So I was like, well, it clearly is physical. That's obviously a mistake that we fall into. If it's physical, then it isn't, a mind-body thing. But we know that's not true.
It's still physical, whether or not it's TMS or not. Exactly.
Exactly. So then I went to a chiropractor, and he started doing adjustments, and they hurt so much. But I was like, the reason I stuck with this guy is that he cared, and he thought he knew what it was. And he also adjusted things, not just my back, but he adjusted his thinking when we would find data. So unlike the doctors I was running into, he was at least using his mind.
Right.
And I could trust that. And so he actually did get the spasms to stop, or we got the spasms to stop. I don't know exactly how. That was about 2 years in. And then I continued for 6 more years.
Fuck.
I'd get adjustments, but I never had answers. He told me to cut down on sugar one time, and I did, and it did get better.
Funny.
But, it was a placebo. It was a placebo cure.
Yeah. And he was just being really nice to you as well.
He was. And he was a great guy. And then he, at some point, said, because I kept asking questions. And through asking the questions, I think he said, well, some people like this guy, Dr. Sarno. And he said, only read his Mind Over Back Pain. After that, he goes too far. So I read Mind Over Back Pain, and then I found
it's enough anyway, right?
He doesn't go far enough in some ways. I mean, I always want to say I'm so thankful to Sarno.
For real.
He saved my life.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed being able to extend that, to understand more about it. I just keep asking questions.
Right.
I'm not at the end of developing my system, I'm sure, because there's more questions.
Of course. And perfecting that to the point, well, not perfecting it, let's not get to perfectionism, but making it easier and more deliverable almost to people so that it's faster and it's more kind of approachable and more digestible. And I mean, the way you do it already is very understandable and really easy to kind of incorporate, I get it. It's brilliant. But yeah, I think there's always work that can be done to make it. There just seems to still be such a level of I don't know if it's a misunderstanding or just like a cycle that people still get into. They need to hear the same thing 150 times before something drops. And it's like, and I know that's just a process anyway, and it takes your brain a while to just accept the fact that what you've been told forever is bullshit. I don't know if you can ever hack that.
Well, it is tough. I mean, because and this is, I think, part of the way that people can become powerful is to recognize, whoa, my entire world didn't know about this.
Yeah.
Nobody I knew about Dr. Sarno back then. Now I think it's getting more known
Yeah.
through partly through people like us,
Mm.
but nobody knew about it, and nobody was able to do anything about it. And I also found that people, and I say this a lot when I do interviews or in my own podcast, because I want people to understand, people who are suffering, to
Mm.
feel that there's someone in it with them that understands the lack of empathy
Yeah,
that
it's
they're receiving.
everything. That's everything. The community aspect to this and the support and the encouragement and just having someone on the other end of the computer that gets it is huge. It's huge. You can't get that from a book, really, can you?
No, and you said something that I think is key, about repetition.
Yeah.
We have to do this repetitively.
Yeah.
It's not. I think sometimes the people who got the book cures and then just went on their merry way, it can throw people off the scent of what we really need to do if we really
Mm.
want to integrate this well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those people who got the book cure are going to end up with a TMS symptom again, and then they're going to
Right.
have to come back to it.
Right. The symptom is going to come back in some way, shape, or form anyway, if you're sort of like susceptible to this kind of thing. And everybody has mind body symptoms anyway. It's just whether or not they get chronic, isn't it? Like we feel things in our bodies and we feel things in our
All the
minds.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the human condition, and
Right.
you hit the nail on the head. If it becomes chronic, that's when people need to find an answer.
Right.
But a lot of times, people are putting up with all kinds of symptoms and not even realizing that they're
Yeah.
signaling
Why would
something.
you? Right. I think we've come to a bit of a tipping point now. It definitely feels like, maybe it's just because I'm kind of in this circle now, but a tipping point where so many more people are understanding it and sharing it. And I've seen bits about it in the newspaper and bits about it. It seems like it's kind of getting to a point now where it's not just a small circle of people that sounds really woo woo.
Yeah, no,
Bunch of
and
witches.
right. Well, this is another reason why I really hammer away at the idea of science and logic. That we're not.
Agreed.
I'm not doing anything that is, voodoo or witchcraft or anything like
Right.
that. In fact, that's the antithesis of how I even got to this. I
Mm.
kept asking questions to try to make sense of it. So when I stopped eating sugar, for the most part, and I did get better, I thought to myself, well, what is this? But it still didn't make sense. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. If that were true, then when I do eat sugar, it should instantly get worse.
Right. It should spike.
And also, why would that be the thing that caused it? It just didn't make any
Yeah.
sense to
No,
me.
no, exactly. The rationale is bollocks, basically.
Right.
What happened then? Were you doing psychotherapy at this point when you were figuring this out?
Yeah, I developed back pain in grad school. And I
Interesting.
really think some of it was because I thought I was going to go into this field and help people in a way that I had not been helped. And that is some of what I did. But what I didn't understand is that I was in such pain myself that adding this empathy of hearing all of
Yeah.
these awful stories was hard to take. And one of the things that I've loved about doing the TMS work, and especially the power column work,
Mm.
it doesn't feel dark to me anymore.
No,
Now it feels like, I know what to do about this.
I get that. I totally get that. Yeah.
So I developed this in grad school, um, and the pain, um,
Mm.
and then I was doing therapy. I was working with college students for the most part. That was kind of my specialty at the time,
Mm.
um, and I was very interested in mind body stuff anyway. There was a book I was reading. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's by a guy named Alex Corin. I think he's British actually, and it was like the psychodynamic understanding of education, and it was all about the fact that our bodies
Wow,
are
that's
are
interesting.
expressing things. But I couldn't understand it at the time.
No.
That was before I even had pain. So I was doing therapy, and I got frustrated with the college counseling scene because it was all. You know what's funny about this? They wanted everything to be short term, and I was like, no, no, no. Therapy's long term. You got to
I
really
love
do
that.
it. And now I'm kind of the opposite in a way, where I'm like,
Mm.
I don't want to do the long term
Right.
work because we don't need to. now that I understand how we can change it fast, I'm all excited about it. I'm like, why would I, why would I do that? And so I've changed even the way that I do just general therapy.
Love that.
This has altered everything.
Yeah, I love that. Like 4 sessions maximum.
For my
Just take good
consultations, yeah.
notes.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't even say it's 4 sessions maximum. It's a 4-session design. There's a lot of times where I'll do like a tune-up.
Sure.
Like 2 months later, people will be like, okay, this hit me and I just need to understand it more. The thing that I'm focused on is, are you getting understanding from what I'm giving you or not?
Right.
In a long-term therapy session, the way it's kind of more classically defined, I find that the therapists almost revel in not knowing. They're like, I don't know. We'll just keep exploring.
Yeah, and I can't tell you even if I did, because that would just go against what I've been told to do.
Exactly.
Even
And
if I think this, I can't tell you it anyway.
so, and that's actually another thing that I'll just say very outspokenly is that I've changed my experience, my way of thinking about the field of psychology. And this is just the way that I am in general, but especially it's gotten channeled even more through my TMS experience, where I won't put up with rules that don't help. I don't care what
Totally
they say.
agree. I totally agree.
So the idea that we should not disclose, for example, about ourselves, that was something that I was taught in grad school, and it just, something didn't feel right about it.
No, especially not in this kind of scenario, because that is your proof almost, isn't it? You are your own evidence.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's TMS that gave me the freedom to say, no,
Exactly.
I'm allowed to
Yeah.
talk about me.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm not talking about me to have it dominate the session. But
No,
here's the
ideally not.
thing. Like, how are we going to get people to walk the walk and be vulnerable with us if we won't even do it?
Yeah,
And
100%.
so I'm kind of calling out psychology on their hypocrisy. It is not okay. The good news is I think that enough people in psychology are starting to understand this. And I think people are getting better help because of it. But we have a long way to go. And I think it's the mind-body field that's going to lead on that, because we're
Yeah,
the
for
ones who
sure.
understand it.
And it requires a lot of advice as well, right? It's not just like, let's chat about stuff and you figure your own way out of this. That'd be
No.
pointless, really, wouldn't it? It'd take 100 years.
Right. And imagine if other professions did that. Like, you
I
brought your
know.
computer in
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, listen,
Let's chat about it
what
for
do
a
you think should
few
happen?"
weeks.
I don't want to like, it's so weird.
It's totally weird. Yeah, it sounds ancient. It does just sound ridiculous. Yeah, well, great. Let's bin that. Make your own way. Yeah.
I did have the experience, though, that with medicine, I weirdly found they were starting to do that in medicine. They were like,
That's
"Well,
ridiculous.
what do you think should happen?" Or it just felt like I was the leader of the treatment team, and I was like, "I'm the patient. Like,
Help me. Yeah.
I don't. If I knew what to do, I wouldn't be coming to you."
For real. And you don't feel particularly like comforted, do you? Or like reassured if you're going in somewhere and you're having to come up with the answers. Like that would probably, your power column would be ruined.
Absolutely. I mean, and actually, that's a very important point, because when I invite people to be powerful, I don't just invite them to be powerful. I actually get in there. I say,
Yeah, you
okay,
help them. Yeah.
let's talk about how do we recognize when you're not powerful? How do we locate what that's really about? Like, the core narrative is so helpful for that. It really focuses, what is this really about? What's really at stake?
Yeah.
And then that also provides answers for, what do you actually do about it? One thing I love is that my system actually answers these questions.
Yes, it does.
And
So
I
let's
think that's what we need to be doing.
definitely. So let's go into, you just quickly wrap up then what happened after you kind of, I guess you gave up the chiropractic stuff, did you? And we'll wrap up that and we'll get stuck into your where you are now, because it's obviously far more beneficial for people to hear. But just what was the tipping point for you for your like recovery once you'd figured that stuff out?
I would say it's interesting because it came from questions again. having
Yeah.
read Sarno and getting relief, I would say the main tipping point was this for me. I was doing these back stretches that I had been doing for years that the chiropractor had given to me. And I thought to myself, if I really believe in this, why am I doing this?
Mm.
That was the
Yeah.
question. And it
Same.
got me to realize that I have to have the courage of my own convictions.
Mm.
And I really did believe it. It all made sense to me. And I was like, so that should mean I actually don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And once I got to that point, then I was like, well, then why would I go to the chiropractor? You know, um, I think it helped most that I was like, you know what? I can face these questions. I can ask them and I can try to find the answers. Once I discovered Sarno, I was like, there actually are some people out there who can answer questions.
Yeah. So was it just like a matter of time then for that to giving up the treatments and stuff like that and just getting back to your kind of life a little bit that helped you, or what was it that
Yeah, well,
worked?
Sarno says you should resume normal physical activity. And I
Mm.
thought that he was just saying, because you're not actually physically hurt, you can go resume normal
Mm.
physical activity. But what I came to understand around the time that this turning point happened is no, he was saying, go confront your own mind.
Right.
Go do these things so you can show yourself you're
Mm.
fine. And
Yeah, I
so I
love that.
started doing that. I loved basketball and I had given it up for
Mm.
that 8 years because I was like, I can't have people crashing into my fragile back.
Right.
Um, and I remember deciding, I understood enough about it at this point that I was like, going back on a basketball court is going to be scary and it's going to be triggering and it could actually lead to pain, but it won't lead to harm.
Mm-hmm.
It could hurt, but it won't harm, is something
Mm-hmm.
that I say. So I did it. And every time I did those things, I found that I got better. And that's
Okay.
part of how I understood, this is about doubt. When doubt goes down, you feel better.
Yeah.
You know, the beginning of the doubt column, I've said this on a number of occasions, though, was when I went to see Eric Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after I discovered Sarno, I was like, I need answers, that I can get from a direct person. And we had one session and I just peppered him with questions, like 200 questions. So questions are the key, you know, just write down your questions and get the answers.
Yeah. I think it's finding the right people to answer those things, though, isn't it, as well? Because a lot of people that I see in the groups and stuff are like, well, it's always kind of the same questions that come up. One, is this TMS? Two, how do I know it is? How can I get it confirmed that it is? And then what do I do? Like if it comes back or if it gets better when it comes back, what do I do? Kind of those type of themes.
Yeah, and I would say this, you those are the important questions, but you cannot settle for an answer that is a half answer or doesn't
Yeah.
feel totally right to you. So demand demand the best in terms of the answer to those questions. And that's what I tried to deliver on because it's what I would have
Mm,
needed.
mm,
I'm not going to settle for half answers. And so when I'm tackling doubt, on my podcast, there's all of these different episodes that attack a certain aspect of doubt.
yeah.
I just did one that came out, I think yesterday. Actually, everything's a blur these days. But
It's a lot. You do a lot.
I do. I did one on the placebo effect and
Yeah, I
how it
saw that.
is just the most obvious proof of mind body issues
Agreed.
because it's there all the time. And if people can use these things against doubt, that that's great. My seminars that I have coming up,
Mm.
they're designed. They're like if you took the podcast and like condensed it into 8 days with me there, where we just hammer away at these questions. Just
Awesome.
we crush them.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's the repetition and it's the condensed nature of it
Mm.
that makes the big difference. And that's one of the reasons that the consultations are so powerful also.
I totally agree. I think I see this a lot, and it's like there's a few courses out there, and there's different sort of modalities for people to follow, and obviously all of this free content that people can follow. And I think people can be quite indecisive or unsure of who to trust in terms of like, if I'm going to go into a paid program or a course or, seminars or whatever, then I'm going to need to know that, like, how do I know that this is going to work? How am I going to commit to spending money on something if I know it isn't going to work? Because put yourself in a situation where if I was to say to you now, if I could guarantee you that this is going to help you and this is going to work for you, then you'd probably find however much money it is to do it
Right.
somehow. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? But it's that, again, it's doubt of the doubt, isn't it? It's doubt of like, is this person going to be able to give me what I need, or am I going to have to sit on these groups for 5 more years and ask a load of other people that are doubtful what to do? You know?
Well, not only that, but a lot of people have the direct experience of being told they will be helped by something and then they aren't.
Absolutely right.
And
Yeah.
listen, that could happen even with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here's the difference. I can tell you why it doesn't work, even when it
Mm,
doesn't work with me. That's the key.
mm,
If you're, I think each one of us as a mind body practitioner, we have to be able to answer that question.
mm-hmm.
We either need to get you better or we need to be able to tell you why it's not getting better. Because
Right.
otherwise, you're not really, otherwise, you are awash in the doubt of the doubt, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
perfectly said.
Yeah.
And so that's one advantage of my program and my way of working is that I won't, if it doesn't work for you, I'm not just going to leave it there. I'm going to explain why didn't it work so that you can then think about that issue because that's the thing that's holding you back. So
Right.
there's always an answer.
Mm,
Even when it doesn't work, there's another at first. There's another step that you can take.
mm. So explain a little bit then, just to summarize kind of what your approach gives people in terms of like how, I mean, we all know that emotional and psychological issues fuel TMS and symptoms and mind body issues. And obviously, if you don't believe and you don't accept and the doubt is there, then that's going to keep the spiral kind of going round and round and round. But I'd really like you to just highlight a little bit about the power column. This is probably a bit selfish from my perspective because I'm just really interested in that. But I think it's something that is really not really discussed that much in this circle. So I think it's a really important thing to highlight as just like it's something that unique that you really kind of do, but also something that's massively resonated with me. And I know that it will be, just knowing the personality types of people that suffer with this kind of thing will see as a very unique kind of perspective. Can you elaborate a little bit on kind of how you look at someone's personality and their self-worth and stuff?
I can definitely elaborate. The question is, can I do it a little bit?
Okay, you've got
Yeah.
4 minutes.
All right. Well, um, I also will be happy to come back if you will have me
Yeah,
because
we'll definitely have to, because there's more to this. We haven't even scratched the surface.
there is so much to this.
Yeah,
What I would say is that there's a couple things that I offer that I find are different than what is out there. There are systems that people have developed, like Howard Schubiner system or
yeah.
Nicole Sachs has Journal Speak, and these are great things, and they've helped lots of people. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that as a, a, a criticism of them, but I tried to develop a system that encompasses everything,
Right.
including why didn't this work?
Mm.
Why doesn't journaling work for some people?
Right.
Why do some people not find the neural pathways argument helpful? Why do some people not get better from Schubiner's work? And
Right.
as I said, I can't say that everyone will get better from my work, but at least my work is not going to stop if you don't get better.
Mm-hmm.
Now we start to ask, why don't you
Mm.
get better? So that's how I ended up developing these other columns. The emotions column, and they're called columns because when I do the consultations, you actually have a sheet of paper and you make columns.
Right.
One's emotion, doubt, and then power. Uh, and the emotions column is very in line with what Sarno said and what Arlene Feinblatt trained people in terms of the psychological aspects of things. I do have some differences in how I do it, but it's pretty in line with that.
Right.
The doubt column, I think, also has certainly some overlap with a lot of people. I had I don't know if you know who another Daniel Daniel Lyman came on my show, and he and I really agree about the doubt column and how he doesn't call it the doubt column, but it's about doubt.
Mm.
and he focuses on how important it is to accept the diagnosis, which of course Sarno talked about, David Schechter talks about it, so many people in the mind body field talk about it. But what ends up happening is I think that some people don't get in the weeds with people enough on that.
Mm-hmm.
What are so I tried to go ahead and describe, how do you discover what your doubts are? How do you get them
Yeah.
articulated?
Yeah. Because it's not just like, do you believe or you not believe? It's
No,
it's loads of different elements of doubt, isn't it? Fear
it,
and
it is.
uncertainty and all of that. Yeah.
I mean, there can even be people who are like, I believe, but I'm scared to tell anybody that, or I believe, but I'm
Mm.
scared to believe. What if it turns out I'm wrong? You know,
Yeah. 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 Or
um,
I believe in it, but what if I'm one of those people that just won't heal?
right. And if there's
Yeah.
an I believe in it, but then you still have doubt. If
Right.
there's a what if, then you still have doubt. And then it's so I divide doubt into these three levels. One is the doubt whether it's a mind body issue or not, and then another is, well, how far do those mind body issues go? Can
Mm.
it do things for what I'm suffering from?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's doubt about the self. Can I do this?
Yeah, and that's where there's a little bit, I think, of nice kind of crossover with your power column. I mean, they all kind of cross over a little bit in each other anyway,
They
don't they?
do,
But
and they impact
yeah,
each other. You can
yeah,
use one to resolve the other. I have another
right.
video on my podcast about that. But that third level of doubt essentially is the power column. It's the beginning
Mm,
of the power column.
mm.
Because if you can master that doubt, that's where your power starts to
Yes,
grow.
yes.
The thing I love about the power column, well, there's many things I love about the power column. It's my favorite column to be in.
Me
Um,
too.
but one of the things that I love most about it is that it takes all of the frustrations that we deal with, all of the rage that Sarno talks about, and it gives us something that we can actually do about it.
Mm, love
Because
that.
the way Sarno talks about it, um, again, I love Sarno. This is not a criticism of him.
Mm,
Um, he was up against a lot of stuff, and he was so brave about it. But I think that he concentrated on the first part, which needed to be done. How do we alleviate the symptoms? But
mm-hmm.
I heard a quote that Sarno said, and this was in his 90s. He was just like, I am so angry all the time. And I get
Yeah,
it. And so
yeah.
am I. We carry that rage. So there's this is something I've just carried with me my whole life.
Mm,
I've carried a conviction that there must be something we can do with this. There must be something we can do with this.
mm,
So, with the death of my father, um I sometimes worry that I talk too much about that for a particular reason. The thing I worry about is that I don't want people to think that it is actually so central to me, because I don't want to be misunderstood as
sure.
who I am. Maybe when I come on the next time, we can talk about, well, who am I in a broader way. But
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about that now because it's so important in the power column. I carried with me a conviction that things could be done better. That I look
Yeah.
I love my family, but I would look at my family and think, come on, guys, like, what are you doing
Yeah.
in certain ways? And I
Yeah.
still sometimes feel that way. And when I say that, I don't mean that I'm perfect about everything, but I'm at least working on it.
Mm,
I don't advocate for being perfectionistic to the point where we criticize ourselves,
mm.
but I do like trying to perfect things.
Yeah, for real. I don't think you can ever let go of that.
And I don't want to. The power column is about accepting who you are and channeling it into the universe.
Yeah.
And that includes your rage. And that
Yeah.
includes your perfectionism. And that includes whatever you
Agreed.
think are your defects. There are virtues to all of your defects.
Yeah. And
And
they
if
helped you to survive as well, right? They got you to this point. Like if you weren't a perfectionist and you weren't a people pleaser and you weren't a self-sabotager, then you would have been a mess. Like that's almost like why alcoholics drink. It gets them to survive and
it
get to
got
that point.
it got
Yeah.
them
Do you
to a
know what I
certain
mean?
point.
Mm,
And then actually I love AA. I'm not in AA because I was never an alcoholic, but
mm,
my best friend is. And I went to an AA meeting to see. Actually, it was when he was doing his. He was speaking at after a certain number of time being sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I forget the term for it. For some reason, I'm blanking on that. But when I went, I was like, this is so familiar because it
Quite
really,
similar.
yeah,
Mm.
there's some overlap in the power column work.
Mm.
It's like you kind of accept yourself more, and then you go live a better life. You actually do it. You know,
Yeah, that's massive. I think that is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've had from all of this is self-acceptance. I think it's even more powerful than getting rid of my pain, for sure. I say it all the time.
yeah. Well, one of the reasons I do talk about the death of my father so much is that I actually wasn't accepting that in a way.
Mm.
So one of the things that happened for me is as I started to develop my power more, I started to be myself more, and that included things like, so I have, well, starting the podcast was one of them. That was a
Mm.
powerful move.
Yeah.
But I also started to say to myself, I'm a therapist, but I'm also like, I'm kind of a comedian at heart too, and like
Yeah.
I can't
I'm
use
just a
that anymore.
guy. Yeah, yeah.
And so I've developed this sports and comedy channel also that's on YouTube.
Oh, I love that.
And it's all me being fully me.
Love that.
And so I just keep doing that. And the funny thing is, like, I don't I don't really think physically much at all anymore. I almost feel like I'm just like floating,
Yeah,
like
I totally get it. I completely know what you're saying. Yeah, it
I'm
is. It
just
changes everything.
yeah, I say that your body is a flowing emotion because
Mm.
we're moment to moment beings, and we just are, and that's how I feel. I just feel like I'm a flowing emotion. I don't
Yeah, I love that.
I don't think physically.
I
And
love
the
that.
power column is the way out of everything. Um I
It's
just
like the
love
most
that
important thing. Yeah, it's everything.
I love that there's something we can do about it all. So I take my rage about what happened, and I go into the world and I hammer doubt, and I hammer ignorance, and I
Mm.
hammer hatred, and
Mm.
I hammer lack of empathy. I mean, like, I want to help a lot of people, but I am using my aggression in the right way.
Yeah, it's pointing it instead of pointing it at yourself, you're pointing it in kind of a useful direction.
Right. I mean, look, my podcast is about that. It's fighting for all of those people that were in the same spot that I was in, and
Right.
even can be in occasionally, and saying, I'm not we are not going to settle for a lack of answers.
Mm.
We are not going to settle for anything that isn't what we want it to be. And so then that leads to me talking to people about things like if they're not in the job that they want,
Mm.
or if the relation, sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, well, maybe I'm in the wrong relationship. I find that that's not actually usually the case. Usually you were drawn to somebody for a particular reason, but you can have a much better relationship. There's
Agreed.
just so much more hope for change than
Yeah, yeah.
people understand if they don't understand power.
I totally get it. What would you say then that like if you okay, so you identify in your sessions or you can do this on your own, I guess if you're watching the podcast and you understand the instruction or they have some of your work. What give me some examples of like if I came to you and said, I gave you a list of my self-esteem issues or where I felt powerless or some examples like that, what are the kind of action steps that you suggest to people to overcome those kind of things? Because I think that's probably where a lot of people get quite lost. It's like, okay, I understand my perfectionism or my personality list is like mine was about 5 pages long when I first started journal speak, but I didn't really know what to do with that information. Like I understood it was, sabotaging my recovery, but what do you do with that?
Great question, and hopefully this won't be a frustrating answer for people out there. But I think that
What do you
my
think
action,
we should do?
my no, I'm definitely not going to do that. My action steps though are not about. I've sometimes thought maybe I need to change that name because they're not usually. They don't start as actions in the external environment. They start as actions of thinking. How are
Mm-hmm.
we going to think about it differently? So you're bringing this question, how can I be powerful? And before you can do it, you need to understand who you are.
Yeah.
So you have to get to the essence, and this is why I like the core narrative. the core narrative gets at the essence of who you are at your being. I'm gonna tell you who I am.
Yeah, give me an
Right
example,
now.
because I think sometimes the words can throw people off. Give me an example. What's your core narrative?
Okay, so my core narrative is really about the fact that I never felt recognized or valid. Uh,
Whew.
that's the way to sum it up.
Yeah.
It started with not having a father, and then I was adopted by my stepfather, who I call my dad and think of as my dad because
Mm-hmm.
I met him when I was like 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's such a great man. But when he adopted my brother and myself, I had to change my last name, and then I felt like, well, I don't know, I don't even have a name.
Yeah.
It's actually something that I love about the fact that there's so many Daniels and Dans and stuff. It's like, yes, I have a name. Um, so I carried that around with me, and I also carried some weight around the fact that I think my mom had a very different relationship with my brother than she had with me,
Mm-hmm.
because my brother was 3 when my father died, and so he was like a sentient being. And
Yeah.
but through my experience of it, I just felt like I'm not recognized fully. I just am not. And so that was the beginning of my core narrative. The middle part of the core narrative is to attach it to, the high stakes function of what did that mean. What it
Mm.
meant was I was living my life feeling that I could never really have what I wanted, that I didn't even deserve it. That was the
Wow.
message I got. And it played out in all kinds of ways. It played out in dating, it played out in um, you know, career ideas, like what
Yeah,
could
for
I
sure.
be, or how powerful could I be? I mean, I had this idea that, and I didn't even realize it, because this is in terms of action steps, you need to ask the question so that you can realize what is happening. And one of the things that I came to is, oh my God, I am living a life where I feel that I'm allowed to be powerful as long as I'm slightly less powerful than my brother.
Wow.
That's what I was doing. I mean,
Shit. That's massive, really, as a realization, isn't it?
it is. I asked my wife
Wow.
out on a date the day my brother got engaged. It was like,
Well, like you're allowed to do that now.
yeah, now I'm allowed to do it.
Whoa.
I
That's
actually made a joke.
heavy.
I made a joke at my wedding that I was like, but I didn't realize how prescient it was, that I would watch my brother and he would like order eggs Benedict or something, and I'd be like, well, now I can order eggs Benedict. But
Wow, that's mad.
it was like I was living my whole life without knowing I can direct my own path.
Yeah.
So the core narrative helps you see what are you at your core. There's a my favorite Shakespeare play is
Just go completely left field for a bit. Go for
yeah, for well, this won't be. You'll see why it's not.
it.
Is Henry the Fourth Part 1.
Oh, that old chestnut. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows that. But
My
here's the
favorite too.
well, it's so funny because I don't know anybody who feels that way. But um, it is a story about a guy who knows that he's great, but nobody can see it,
Oh, wow.
and then he
I
becomes
love that.
Henry V. So I actually ended
It's
up writing a
brilliant.
song about this because I write songs, which I started doing out of
Can you sing
becoming
it, please?
powerful. Oh, well, I can, but I wasn't prepared for that.
Okay,
Anyway,
well,
let's wait till the second time.
next time we'll do it. Right, you get ready.
You want to know what's funny? When you asked me that question, I thought to myself, what's the
Should I?
powerful move here?
Right. Yes.
And the powerful move could have been, yeah, I'll go ahead and sing it. But I decided not to because it's not the powerful move for me right now.
Right.
And I'm not ready
You
for it.
get to choose.
I'm not ready. Yeah, so I get to
Yeah.
choose.
Get to practice.
Um, so that fits with the core narrative. And what do I do about it? I go ahead and I live like the guy who knows that he's. I don't mean it to sound arrogant. I think
No, no,
all of
it's
us are
not.
great.
It's not arrogant at all.
It's not just
It's
me.
beautiful.
You're all great.
It's beautiful.
You all have a powerful narrative where you can be great. But I finally believe in mine. I
Yeah.
finally recognize that all those feelings of not being valid or not being recognized, they don't matter, because the people who can recognize me will. if
Yeah,
I
and
put myself
recognizing
out there.
yourself as well. Like that's the most important thing of all,
It is. It is. And
right?
I now recognize myself, and I don't care what anybody else thinks
Exactly. It
because of
doesn't
it.
really matter anyway.
Doesn't matter. I mean, I like
Oh,
being
I love it.
recognized. It feels nice,
Yeah,
but I don't need it anymore.
I love that. That is powerful in itself. That's everything, isn't it?
So, I mean, you asked this question, and we'll finish up on this because I got to run. But
Yeah.
you asked the question, what can people do? And I often have answers like this. Don't rush off to do something. Do something in here where you actually understand what question are you actually asking, and
Mm,
what is the actual answer. Ask yourself the question, what do I actually need?
mm,
What is the powerful move of this moment? It's not as mysterious as it seems if you're asking
mm,
those questions.
mm. Yeah, it sounds quite simple. I think it's just a case of actually getting to that point where you believe in yourself enough to listen to that voice as well, right? It's not just like, oh, well, I think I
Right.
should probably say that the powerful mood is this.
Yeah.
It's
There's no
knowing.
probably
It's
involved.
knowing. No, it's it's the knowing and trusting that voice, isn't it?
You'll know when you know who you are at your core. So the first step is figure that out.
Yeah.
And you can follow I have a PDF that's available on my website,
Mm.
which is www.crushingdoubt.org. That sounds like a plug, but I actually do want to just give people the resource. You can find out how to develop your core narrative, and from there you can get answers about how you can be powerful.
I think it's, well, to use the word again, I think it's really powerful work. And let's definitely do a second episode because literally we've not even got into any of the questions. So, and we
I
didn't even
love it.
get to do the song either, which is definitely coming up next time. So get ready.
I'll be ready that time. I mean,
Um,
I can't guarantee I'll say yes because I have to figure out what's the powerful move,
no,
but
but that's
I'm
okay.
open to it. I'm
Or
open to it.
maybe you
And
could just record it and we could play it.
I have it recorded already.
Okay, well, maybe
So
we'll
maybe
do
we'll
that
do
as well.
that. Maybe we'll do that. I'll decide which is best, but I would actually like to share that song because it's a
Yeah,
very powerful song.
it's significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. I know this was a bit random in terms of like where the story went and where it's always the way it goes here. It's like the most casual podcast ever. There's no
I
rhyme
love
or
it.
reason to the way it goes. Um, let's do it again, and I will put all of your links and as much stuff as I can possibly all in the show notes in the video description and on your page I'll create on the website for this as well. And obviously it'll go out in social media and stuff. So if people want to ask you questions about any of this, we can like carry on that conversation in any of those posts if you're cool with that, if you're okay with responding there
Oh,
or in,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, absolutely. I'm here. I'm here for everybody. And and then you're going to come on Crushing Doubt, and I look forward
Yeah.
to that.
I
So,
won't have a song though. Maybe I'll make one.
hey, listen, don't doubt yourself. Anything is possible.
The powerful move would be to make a song.
Not necessarily. The powerful move could be I don't write songs and I never am going to. So there.
Absolutely not. I won't be told what to do. That's my power move.
That's right.
Dan, it's been such a pleasure.
This has
Um,
been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And it's so nice as well to meet someone else in this space that is kind of really lighthearted about this stuff and it's not I know it's a really depressive kind of subject and stuff, but like I really appreciate your humor and just your kind of overall vibe. I loved it. It was great fun.
Thanks, Dani. This was wonderful, and I look forward to doing more together.
And you. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me.
Okay, thanks so much.
Take care, Dan.
You too.
What a legend. That was so fun. And that went too quick and we need to talk more. So I'll definitely do a follow-up episode with him soon. But I will also be on his podcast, Crushing Doubt, in the next, I think it's at the beginning of June. We have that booked in. So watch out for that. And yeah, I'll put all of his links either here below the video or in the description on YouTube. So wherever you're watching this from, you can find all of his stuff. Let's carry on the conversation on social about this conversation with Dan. And yeah, I'm not sure when I'll be bringing out another episode of this because it is a bit haphazard at the moment as and when I can fit it in. But I will catch you on the next one. And I really appreciate you watching and following along. Catch you soon. Thanks for joining. Bye.